famous, number one, desirable. I do what I want, when I want, and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air, that's how I roll. I got tons of soul, I'm a true collectible. Famous, also famous, number one, desirable. I do what I want, when I want, and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air, that's how I roll. I got t-shirts, so I don't care about no gold. Better, so much better, flipping incredible. Always on the show, so they know that I still got it. And I never feel sorry, yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. When I hit and feel like my fuse and then ba-bum. Later, see you later, I'm about to blow this up. You can sing or sing if you want. I know you want it. It's always kind of funny.
Hey guys, I'm S3e. Welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, and this is the home of our originally created series, My Story. This is now the third series, and as I've said many times, what I love about this series is that no matter what industry someone's from, whatever they've chosen career is, everybody has got a story to tell. And of course, you know, Ace Podcast Nation, many great shows and series featured on the channel with top guests, expert analysts, and more. My Story, like all our other shows and series, available in video format at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Please do subscribe, click the bell, all that good stuff really helps us out. And if you prefer your podcasts in audio platforms, then you can get it at the Sports Social Podcast Network, the UK's first all sports podcast network, featuring shows on Premier League, MMA, boxing, and many other sports. But check them out. And of course, you can find all of our content and shows, the various series there, including My Story and including Rodri Gigs on Football, Danny Bratton Fight Show, and many others. My Story series is unique to all our other series as we take our guests through their life and their career from their birth and their upbringing all the way up to present day as they sort of share memories and anecdotes along the way. Always a lot of fun. Across the second series, we had actors, footballers, broadcasters, authors, filmmakers, podcasters, fighters, and loads more. Series 3 has been absolutely no different. The tagline is simple: real conversations with real people. It's their story and their words. So let's get started. I'm delighted to be joined today by a former Cardiff City, for Forest Green Rovers, and Clevedon Town, Merthyr Tydfil, and of course, nearly 500 appearances for Bath City, and a stint as their assistant manager more recently. It is Jim Rollo. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Hi, S3e. Yeah, pleased to meet you. Very good, thank
you.
you.
It's going to be good. Looking forward to this. So, what I like to do with these series is we start at the beginning, and then we take you right back to sort of where it all began for Jim Rollo. So, what tells us a little bit about the beginning and the upbringing, I guess, and what that was like for you?
Yeah, so my parents were hoteliers. So I was born in Cambridge and lived there up until I was around 6 or 7, and then we moved to the sort of the West Country, not far from Bristol, and that's when I sort of started my first playing football in the local park, and then when I was old enough, I went along to Bristol Rovers Centre of Excellence once or twice a week, as Bristol Rovers was my local football club, and that was where probably my first recollection of Kenny Hibbett, the ex Cardiff City manager. He came to Bristol Rovers as a sort of player coach, and he moved into the same villages that I was living in with my parents at the time. So that's where I sort of started off really, and he sort of gave me my first break in football, I suppose, as when he left Bristol Rovers, he went to manage Walsall, and instead of signing schoolboy forms for Bristol Rovers, I managed to sign for Walsall up in the Midlands, and it was quite nice actually, because back then we had opposite half terms, so I used to get extended half terms, because I'd have a week off here down at home, and then I'd have to go up there for the half term soccer sort of programs that they ran in half term. So that was where it all started really, and from there Kenny Hibbett sort of took me up to Walsall, and ended up signing an apprenticeship there at YTS for a couple of years, and and then staying there for another year after that. So yeah, that's where it all started.
So so Bristol Rovers actually have got a really good, even to this day, they've got a really good youth system and an academy set up. So it sounds like that's been going a long time. Was there other sports which you were good at or interested in, or was it always kind of football for you?
Yeah, no, football was my passion. Always, dreamt like most boys do is to be a footballer. But I lived in a really little village just outside of Bristol, more close to Forest Green, I'd say. There was only sort of 6 or 7 kids, but I had to play in the school netball team because there weren't enough girls. So we played netball, we played tennis, we played cricket, we played golf. My best mate was a golfer, so he used to play a lot of golf growing up. But it's a bit like you say, the Rovers Academy at the time. I went to a little primary school, and one of the coaches that used to coach at Bristol Rovers, he used to come out into the community and coach some of the school stuff, and that's how my connection of getting across there. So having opportunities, like that at a young age was really good. But I've got I grew up in pubs as well and hotels, so pool, darts, any game really. I'm really into.
So with them, when you joined Bristol Rovers for the first time for the School of Excellence, what age would you have been about then?
I was 12, I think. Yeah,
so that's
12.
Pretty young for back then, isn't it? Because I know now they sign kids from 7 years and upwards, but back then it was more common to get sort of picked up by football clubs. I suppose 12 upwards was about it, and it was more like your teenagers as opposed to young kids like they do today. So tell me a bit about those early experiences as you kind of went into your teenage years and stuff like that. Were you kind of so much about football that you didn't really focus too much on your studies and the academic side of things? As we hear quite a lot with kind of ex-footballers, particularly from that era, they focused so much on football that the school sort of took a back seat. Or did you break the mold?
Yeah, no, not really. The age thing is is something we can debate for a very long time, really. Back when I was sort of coming through the sort of centre of excellence stuff, you couldn't actually sign a schoolboy until you're 14. So and even then, when you signed a schoolboy, you could still go and play for your local Sunday team. So I still play at St Nick. So you get the beauty of that. Now, obviously, in the academies nowadays, they take you at 7 and 8 years of age, and
stop you playing for your clubs.
You don't go and get that enjoyment of your friends. And the only thing I can explain really from me, really, I was quite a nervous kid, quite a shy kid, really. I used to love playing with my friends because I was, in my local area, probably one of the best young lads at school and stuff like that. So, I was really confident I could shine and stuff like that. But the moment I went into Bristol, and all of a sudden you become just this lad that that's average, average in a group, really. Did I enjoy it? No, I didn't. I remember turning up at times thinking, actually, I don't really want to be here tonight. I found it really nervous and stuff like that. Obviously, when the training started and I got through it all, there was no problem really, but there was still, lots of apprehension and lots of times where I thought, actually, I don't really enjoy this. Why am I actually coming along here on a Thursday night? My parents giving up a lot of time to take me because it was half an hour away and things like that. But the sacrifice of you wanting to be a footballer, you sort of you got through those early days of not really enjoying the seriousness of the coaching and not being that not being the sort of the best player in the team. Took a little bit to get used to as I was growing up as a kid, really. And I think, like you say, those times, from sort of 14 onwards, really, when you're trying to make your mark in knowing that in a couple of years' time there's YTSs on offer and stuff like that. It's very competitive, and lots of cliques in football, lots of selfishness in these groups that were quite hard to manage. Coming from a little village, being not having any real lads that I'd go to school with and stuff. I was sort of the only one out of my school going along to this sort of kind of centre of excellence, really. And that all really changed, really, when I'm not saying it was bad. Bristol Rovers, got a really, really good reputation. The coaching was really, really good. The opportunities they give was great. But I think when I went up to Walsall, and I did it on work experience, actually, when I was 15, and they offered me a schoolboy when it was about time to sort of sign some schoolboy forms. It was a totally different feel, whether that was because Kenny Hibby had taken me up there, and he was the manager and, whatever, I don't know, but I was accepted, into the group, and and really enjoyed my time once I got my schoolboy form signed at Walsall. You know, it was the first sort of step really of actually, you know, becoming that footballer you wanted to be really, and I really enjoyed, you know, going up there. But like I say, a lot of sacrifice from my parents, you know, who were hoteliers and pub, you know, landlords and stuff like that, you know, giving up their time, because Bristol Road was just down the road, but unfortunately Walsall was a couple of hours up the road for them to sacrifice really. But as I got a little bit older, really enjoyed those years in the sort of schoolboys format really. But same again then, you know, it wasn't like it was today. Now you look at where we train with Bar City, we share Bristol City's academies training facilities. They're there from 6 till 8 every night, you know, all the different age groups, and the commitment now at this young age, they actually and the hours they put in is so different to what it was, you know, 30 years ago when I was coming through the systems.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like the Parks teams and stuff like that, and kids miss out on that today. We had Joe Jacobs on, Wycombe Wanderers midfield defender, who was on, I think, 2 episodes ago, and he's from the same area as me, and he's obviously a little bit younger than me, only a little bit, but he's a little bit younger than me, and so we kind of grew up in the same area and the same sort of era, and I was a similar sort of thing. I was in a school of excellence and stuff, but when I was going to the school of excellence, I wasn't enjoying it because I didn't know anyone, and it was kind of like this dread of, oh, I don't really want to go here, and I didn't get past it. In the end, I kind of convinced my mum that I don't want to go. I'd rather do other stuff, and I just wanted to go out with my friends and do my sort of school parks football and stuff. So I never pushed on, but Joe obviously did, and he went and did, you know, his parks team is the way he talked about it. Some of the most enjoyable football of his life. You know, they won tournaments and, you know, went on football tours and all this different stuff. Yeah. But these days, kids miss out on that because there's a boy in my younger boys team, when they were in like under 8s, Cardiff signed him, and within, I think, 6 months of him signing, he was not allowed to play for anyone but Cardiff, the county, and I think possibly the Cardiff schools. Apart from that, he wasn't allowed to play, so he missed out on. I understand it, of course. From one side, they want to look after the player, but playing for your school, see its sides, playing for your parks team, they're a big part of kind of growing up and just playing with your friends. And I think it's a bit unfortunate that kids miss out on that straight away just because they're good at something. But like you say, there's so many hours going from like a young age. Like 2 of my boys were with sort of Taftswell and Cardiff for a little bit, and it's just like, you know, a few times, 3 times a week training, games, and before you know it, your week's gone and you haven't done anything other than watch children's football. So, you know, I got a lot of admiration for parents of footballers as they trek up and down the country, taking their kids here, there, and everywhere to play for various, you know, academies and teams. So as it's sort of 15, 16, you signed schoolboy terms with Walsall. Where were Walsall in sort of 95, 96 season?
So they were in the old division, the old Division 3, back then. And Kenny had been up there a couple of years, I suppose, then. And it was quite a well-established club. They'd moved into a brand new ground sort of a couple of years before Kenny got there to Bescott. They, like you say, they were applying themselves in the sort of lower tiers of non-league football, sorry. And I think that's, you know, when you look at these academies, and I think you just mentioned it there, really, about the, you know, the amount of hours parents have shipping around, stuff like that. And depending on, you know, the academies and where you're at and stuff like that, you know, for example, Bristol City, you just see them, they're busting them in by minibuses, you know, they go few and far across the areas, you know, across to the bridge into South Wales as well. And, you know, the amount of, you know, the how well these kids are looked after at some of these academies is pretty phenomenal. Where back, you know, when we were doing it, you know, it was all reliant on your parents to get you there and, you know, do all these different things really. So the academies are, are pretty different these days. And Walsall was, like I say, applying itself in the 3rd tier. They didn't have huge amounts of money, but it was professional football with some good seasoned pros in there and a good mixture of youngsters as well, really. And I think it's just the offer of that YTS scheme, that 2 years of youth training, and you got a mixture of 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, the first years and the second years, and it really does make you I think probably the best 2 years of my life in terms of upbringing and the experience and the fun you had. And while you weren't quite a professional, you were aiming to be a professional. But I'm talking 30 years ago, and I was coming up through where there was characters in the game. You could get away with a lot more than what you could then, because there was no video phones, there was no social media, there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
And the things that you could write a book on, whether it's character building, bullying, or however you want to put it in terms of stuff like that. But the things that went on in the dressing rooms, and the camaraderie that the lads had, because whatever the pros did to the second years with a bit of banter, the second years did it to the first years in our dressing room in the YTS. And like you say, we had some really, 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 really good times. And I think also back then, in the sort of lower tiers there, and even in the higher tiers, when you look at some of the podcasts that I've been listening to lately, really is that there was a big camaraderie, sort of drinking culture, social culture, playing golf, having Wednesday clubs, Tuesday clubs, and things like that. And it was a good time.
100%. It's a different culture around the sport. There's a bigger gap as well between the fans and the players, I think, these days than there was back then.
Oh, massively, yeah.
So you made a couple of first team appearances for Walsall before you moved on to Cardiff City. How did you feel leaving Walsall after being there, as a teenager, and then obviously moving on to not only a different club but moving down to South Wales as well?
Yeah, no, I was, I was quite a level-headed sort of guy, really. I was never too high or never too low in my emotions and stuff. And you always know, as players, where you are in your pecking order in terms of in the squads, where your career is going and stuff like that. And I was always, pretty true to myself, really. And the year Kenny left, we had a chap come in called Chris Nichol, and he was the old centre half at Southampton. And he came in the club, and he was a totally different sort. Ken was a very, very good coach, really, really loved looking after the young lads and coaching the young lads and stuff, where Chris, he brought in some experience, and you could just tell which way he was going to go. He did give me plenty of opportunities and plenty of chances, but in his first season, we got promoted. So, in that promotion season, I found it very, very hard, to break into that first team, really. And I made a couple of appearances, one in the Coca-Cola Cup and one off the bench. But I always knew that, where I was in that, and the club was trying to get promoted again. And I think, after I left in the years, you could see them, they sort of got up into the Championship over a number of years, really, similar to my Cardiff Tydfil in a minute when we start talking about them, really. But so I always knew really where I was sort of heading and where I was in that sort of, time at Walsall. And obviously Kenny had sort of left Walsall and gone to Cardiff. And, he was always in touch, saying, what you're doing with your football and all that kind of stuff. You get another year at Walsall now. And I said, well, look, I think I'm probably not going to get another year, at Walsall. I'd been out on loan a couple of times, and he said, look, if you want to come into Cardiff pre-season, I can't say that, I can't promise you anything, but, there'll be an opportunity at Cardiff, really. But so it was a bit mixed emotions, really. Yeah, like I said, I had my best years at Walsall, with the lads, learning my trade, and there was some good pros in there, and Chris Nichol was very good the year we got promoted there. He included everybody. There was a 20-man squad. I travelled every week with the first team, which, nowadays is very rare because they've got big squads and not everybody travels. And everything we did, we were all included, across the board. Even there's sort of another young lad with me at the same sort of time. And and then at the end of the season trip, we had an all expenses paid trip to Tenerife, and it was included, along with the lads there and some of the senior pros. And we had a left back there called Colin Gibson, who was a ex-Man United left back, and he was just in his mid-30s, coming to the end of his career, but he used to look after me as an older pro. And he was really, really good to me about teaching me what it took to be a professional footballer, and including me in all their stuff, really. So while it was a little bit of a I knew that if I had a chance to another club at pre-season, I think I thought I knew I'd be able to probably earn a contract there, because Cardiff were in very, very similar. They're in the league, the league below Walsall at the time. They were in the last tier of professional football, and I thought actually, I'd have probably more of a chance maybe breaking into their first team than I would, with Walsall. So, yeah.
So, so you left Walsall, you went to Cardiff, you had a good couple of years at Cardiff. Tell us a bit about your time at the Welsh capital.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say I'd never been across to Cardiff. Even when I was at Walsall, I'd never played at Cardiff's Ninian Park. It was back then, and I just remember turning up to the stadium, and it was a proper football club. Huge floodlights is what you notice. And the stand and just the passion. And I know it's rugby is very passionate across in Wales, but the passion of those Cardiff fans, that's one of the first things I probably remember coming into it, really. But like I say, it was really interesting because football was really, really different then. I came in on trial. Phil Neal was the manager at the time, and cool. What a career he had. We don't need to talk about Phil Neal's career, but there was a split group. They were obviously trying to do a few things, and there was some players there that they were trying to get out, and there were some players there that were on trial, stuff like that. And so we had separate change rooms. So I wasn't even training. While I went on trial, I had no training kit.
Mm-hmm.
I had none. Literally it was come along and see how it goes. And obviously, I was always a fit guy. If anyone speaks to me about football, is that technically I was never brilliant, but I was always one of the fittest guys of the group, and that's why I looked after my fitness. Because without that, I'd never probably got and played professional football really. And so pre-season was perfect for me because, like you say, I'd spent all summer getting really, really fit. Come back and, like you say, I'd be at the front in the running and doing all the different stuff. And I think that's coaches and people like that are impressed with that kind of thing through pre-season really. And then so pre-season sort of come to an end, and Phil Neal and Ken sort of sat me down and really they offered me a non-contract, so I didn't really sign a contract straight away. They just said, look, probably the best thing for you to do is to if you sign a non-contract, you can probably go out on loan and you can sign for another football club, and get some games in on a Saturday. Because we see you can play in the reserves midweek, and then you can play for a team, sort of over in Bristol really. So I thought, right, okay, I agreed to that. We sort of agreed some money, and it worked for both parties. And then I was quite enjoying actually playing in the reserves back then, because obviously the third tier of English football, you're playing.
They were proper reserves back then, weren't they? They weren't
and
what today.
Like I say, I've still got. I was looking through doing some stuff when I look, and you look through some of the team sheets when we're playing like Chelsea, Arsenal, West Ham. We went to West Ham, and Peter Shorten played in goal that day.
Mm.
They had a goalkeeping crisis, and they had no goalkeepers, and so he was in his early 40s, and late 30s and 40s, and so Peter Shorten, and us growing up as a kid, I grew up watching international football, and Peter Shorten, and then Frank Lampard and Rio Ferdinand were playing, and players like that. It was just great. And you go into Chelsea, and Ruud Gullit's the manager, and you've got John Terry, Jody Morris, David Rocastle back then was playing in there. Anelka played when we played at Arsenal. All those different things. So the lads were buzzing for the midweek reserve games. Not so necessary. Traveling to Carlisle on a a Friday.
Absolutely.
So I really enjoyed that, and at the same time I signed for Bath City then for the first time. So in 1997 they were in the conference, and I made my debut actually for Cardiff on the Friday night. So I remember I was literally I was playing quite well in the reserves. I was doing okay. There was a few injuries in Cardiff's first team, and we were going quite well actually. In the league, and I'd been in close to a couple of squads, and then I remember it was I think it was January time, just after Christmas. So I spent the first part of the season, sort of on a dual registration, and I went to Bath, and I played. I made my debut live on Sky at Fulham. I came on for about 4 minutes, and I think I headed the ball once, but I'd made my first team debut, which was really proud of down at Craven Cottage that night. We won 4-1 with Steve White scoring a couple of goals. But and same again, you remember the characters and the era that you play. And I just remember we got back on the bus, and we'd just been Fulham. We were the favourites to win the league, 4-1 at their patch. Create a lager, create a cider. The music was going on the coach, stuff like that. And then I get a phone call from the Bath City manager just checking to see whether I'm able to play the next day. And because I was on dual registration still, I could, so I didn't want to let him down. They were struggling at the time, Bath, and he was a lovely guy, Steve Millard, and I'd played about 3 games for them previously, I think, and so I end up getting off the bus at sort of 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, coming out of Fulham on a Friday night, back up into Bath at 10:30 the next morning to practice set pieces and free kicks. So they'd signed a few players up on Lansdowne and end up playing against Macclesfield on the Saturday in the conference for Bath, which proved to be my last game. And then I came back to Cardiff and managed to get in the first team until the end of the season. Then so it wasn't all plain sailing. My first sort of season in Cardiff.
It's interesting though, because you'd never get a dual contract like that now. I don't think.
No,
from any football
no.
club,
And that's I think the beauty. So some non-league clubs, they do it in non-league now. You know,
Yeah.
they do some stuff like that, which I think you get the best of it sometimes, where players are not playing. You can get them on a dual registration and get them out, and it just helps that way really. But yeah, like you say, it'd be very I doubt if you'll see a player making his league debut on a Friday night live on Sky at Fulham, and then turning out for Bath City the next day in the conference. I don't think you'll probably you'll find that again.
And the thing is, like at the age you were at there, you just need to play football, and if you're not going to get that opportunity within your football club, you need to be able to get it elsewhere. And you had the best of both worlds in that you were playing with extremely competitive reserve games, but then also getting to play, league football for Bath on a Saturday. So then, when you sort of knocked that on the head and you were with sort of back to Cardiff, who were some of the guys within that dressing room who kind of helped you out and was most influential to you?
There were some two. The two local ones really that spring to mind were Scott Young and Lee Jarman. Jarman had just broken in the first team as I sort of got there really, and they were two great, two good characters of the game. You mentioned characters of football, and two local lads, and the fans love them too. So they helped me really. But when Kenny Hibbett come along and then Russell Osman sort of came in when Phil Neal went that season, we sort of had a bit of a Bristol City contingent where Jason Fowler and Scott Partridge came across, and then we'd signed Steve White from Hereford the pre-season that I started. So there was a bit of a contingency from Bristol. So there was some lads in there that that we were travelling across together with really. So which really helped really. But then there was like Jason Perry, the skipper, who'd been there years, and he'd tell you what it meant to. I remember going to when you're playing away at Swansea in the derbies and things like that. There, he would tell you what come on lads, this is what it means to this football club. There's no way you can lose today. So Jason Perry was in that thing, and then Carl Dale was the lad banging all the goals in really when I got there really, and Carl again, another great lad, good character, and really enjoyed his company as well really. So it was quite a good mixture really when I got there of good experienced pros really, and also some good local young talent really that were really good.
Yeah, we've always been pretty good with the kind of homegrown players coming through, even up to kind of present day. There's always one or two at least in and around the first team. We had Lee Jarman on. So I had Lee Jarman in the studio, I think probably about a month or two ago, to do an episode of this. Yeah. And he's a proper character. And I think I felt quite sorry for him when he was I was chatting to him and he was telling me that, like, his story, like he had kind of hit a real high point, and then all of a sudden it just went a bit pear-shaped for him. And look, he still enjoyed playing football, but I think a lot of people I've spoken to from in and around Cardiff and players who were around the club at the time, they all felt that he was a very, very good footballer who was probably more suited to playing football now than perhaps back then. But
yeah, definitely.
With a bit of luck maybe, and without falling out with Frank Burrows, perhaps he would have gone on and had a career at a higher level. But such is life. I got a lot of time for Lee, and Scott Young is as well. We had Scott on before, and he's coming into the studio soon as well. But he's obviously had a stint as Cardiff manager temporarily with Daddy Gabadon most recently.
Yeah.
So you said you broke into the Cardiff first team for the rest of that season. So when you came back sort of after the summer, the following season, you must have been pretty kind of upbeat and looking forward to that season, having spent the second half of the season in the first team.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, like I say, we were on a really good run at the end of it. And I remember we played Darlington away at the end of that season. And we needed to get a point to get in the playoffs. And I've never seen, well, I knew Cardiff had some fans and the following was always good, but on this particular day, there was more outside the stadium than there was inside the stadium. It was only small Darlington, and the following was terrific. And unfortunately, like I say, we got into the playoffs and we got beat by Northampton in the first sort of playoff legs. And but like I say, I made a few appearances that towards the end of that season, and I was in the squad, and I was on the bench, came on in the first playoff game, but didn't feature in the second. And then I signed a new contract, and I thought, I'm really looking forward to coming back in that pre-season. And like you say, sort of Kenny had sort of, Russell Osman had sort of come in and then went, and then Kenny sort of came in and was then looking after it. And this bit like you were talking about Lee Jarman, I think there's certain managers that have opinions, and football's all about opinions and stuff like that.
Yes,
and when you find a manager that sees something in you that they like, and I think that when Ken sort of saw Lee Jarman, Ken was really good at coaching the young lads coming through. He really enjoyed that part of the work and the hours that he used to put in with the younger guys. And you mentioned Lee there. At that age, I don't think I've seen a lad that good at football. He was so, for a centre back, he was so good on the ball. Right foot, left foot. He could pass the ball to death. And that's what, it's almost like a quarterback with playing football. He sort of started us off on how we played, and that gave him real great confidence and stuff like that. And then you mentioned you get a bit of a change in manager, and, that confidence goes a little bit, and they're asking you to do a little bit more, and it didn't work out. But, Scott Young was, he was the same. And we still had Lee, we still had Scott. We signed a couple of other lads. We'd signed sort of the goalkeeper Howarth from Oldham, who had been in the Premier League and was a good, some really good signings. So, but for whatever reason, we just didn't really get going that season. We drew quite a few games and stuff. And I think it was the second game of the season. I worked really hard, and got myself in the squad, and I'd managed to knock myself out scoring in the Coca-Cola Cup against Southend, really. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because me and Kevin Nugent shared an ambulance that night. So Kev had just broken his ankle, and they were waiting for an ambulance for Kev, and then I'd come on in the 86th minute or something like that, and then I was knocked out by the 88th minute, and by the time the ambulance come, I went in the ambulance with Nuge. But I had a real bad concussion. I was out for sort of 5 minutes, and they didn't let me play for 3 months. I was 12 weeks without playing. I was sort of in hospital for 2 or 3 days, and all sorts of brain scans and all sorts of stuff like that, really. And while I wasn't a massive drinker, it felt like I'd been out drinking for every day. I woke up in the morning with this real thumping headache and stuff like that, really. And and it was a real shame because my season really didn't get going then, really. I'd sort of missed the best part of the early bit of the season, really. And then I got in a couple of times, really, and then Kenny Hibbert unfortunately got the sack, and they brought in Frank Burrows, and who was did remarkably well for the football club at the time. But me and Frank, we just, not that we didn't see eye to eye, I was another young lad amongst the, we'll say young lad, but I was in me as 20-ish, and there was Lee Jarman, Scott Young, there was Lee Phillips coming through, there was Rob Earnshaw, there was Christian Roberts, there was quite a lot of good young local talent coming through, and you just sense that what's going to happen. You know what's coming, and I really enjoyed Frank's. I wouldn't say his training, but I really enjoyed the way he was assembling a squad and how he got the dressing rooms together and stuff like that. But he he managed differently to Kenny and Phil and the managers I'd been used to before. He was very a big disciplinarian. It was almost you manage him by not frightening you, but making you feel actually if you didn't do your job and whatever, he was a tough guy. And Billy Ayres, blessed of both of them. They were two very good footballing people. They really knew their football, and they knew how to get Cardiff promoted. And that's what they did, really. And my sort of, they were very honest with me, very upfront, and I could just see my opportunities after a month or so of them coming in of not being there, really. But Billy Ayres worked really hard. Not so much Frank. He didn't really do too much coaching with the younger boys stuff like that. But Billy Ayres spent a lot of time with myself, and so did Jimmy Goodfellow. Bless Jimmy. Cardiff Hero was there for all those years. He was part of the furniture. Jimmy. He was any of the younger lads that were having a bit of a tough time or not quite in the team and stuff like that. He knew how to look after and manage and talk and take you for extra sessions and stuff like that to try and give you the best opportunity, really. And then also speak to other clubs if they were always asking Jim, what good young lads have you got around that are available to go out on loan, and I ended up going out on loan in the end. Ebervale, if you can remember Ebervale, you know, they came in for me, and it was a chap called John Lewis at the time, who I believe played for Cardiff back in the day, and he had the two Giles brothers there, Paul and Dave, I think it was, the two Giles brothers, two great, you know, and those three characters, and you know, they come and sat me down and said, look, we've spoken to Frank, we're happy for you to come. We've got 8 games in 4 weeks. It's a good chance for Frank to come and have a look here, see where you're at and what you're doing. But we're trying to get into Europe. We've got to finish in the top 3. And and it was my first taste of the Welsh. Never, played a couple of pre-season games for Cardiff, but it was my first taste in the Welsh Premier League. And cool, that was tough football. That was tough football. But we managed to. I can't remember how we did, but I don't think we lost a game while I was there for the 8 games. And I remember talking to the chairman and saying, look, you know, offered me a nice little bonus if I stayed and got him into Europe. And then he slightly changed his mind when he said I had to play in the European qualifying game in June, I think it was June or something like that. And I'd been released from Cardiff, and I just negotiated a contract with Forest Green, and there was no way Forest Green would let me play for Ebervale in June in Europe to get me bonus. But it was good times. We played Barry, and there's some good teams in it. And Barry were very, 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 you know, they won it every year, and you know, they were very, you know, some good strong teams in it really. But so again, it meant I got football. You know, I wasn't you know, bothered about going out on loan. You know, and I don't know whether Frank came and watched me play or whatever, but you know, that is irrelevant now. You know, I knew what was coming at the end of the season. You could just tell the way he was going and what experience he was trying to bring into the football club. And there was, if I'm all honest, you know, I was sort of more of a defender then as a midfielder. I did like to play in centre midfield as well, but I'd end up becoming more of a right back, comes, you know, maybe a centre back or a right wing back. And you know, I was never going to be ahead of, you know, Scott Young, Lee Jarman, and then Lee Phillips was coming through, another young lad that came in at, you know, he was a couple of years younger than me, and he was a very, 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 very good footballer, you know. So I could see what was happening really. And then Christian Roberts came in, and Robert Earnshaw and stuff like that. And then you can see that Cardiff always look out for the results now, even all these years later, I still pick out the results when they're playing.
You mentioned, just going back to that concussion, Jim. That must have been one hell of a concussion. Like, I've had one myself, and it's not pleasant. But back in, you know, the sort of mid to late 90s, we didn't know what we do now about concussions and head injuries and stuff like that. They weren't treated as seriously as they are now in any way. So for you to take, I think it was 4 months, you said, to have 4 months out of playing, that must have been a pretty bad concussion.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I still to this day, you know, I've seen the goal. Someone shared it back to me, but I've not. I can't even remember, you know, turning up to the ground. I can't remember the game. Can't remember coming on. Can't remember nothing about it. Yeah. Can't even remember. I've got a slight recollection. I can remember the ambulance leaving Ninian Park, and I can remember the fans singing, chanting. You know, I don't know what they were chanting, but I could just remember, you know, that's the only thought of that, you know. And I can't remember going into the hospital or anything, but I just remember waking up the next day, you know, in hospital. And they said I was out concussed for nearly 5 minutes. Yeah. So, it was a lad that, I think it says in my Wikipedia, or a lot of places you hear, I collided with the post with a diving header, but no, it was a centre back. I can't recollect his name now, but he came across, and as I headed the ball, he caught me clean on the temple. And it was tough because, like you say, you know, when you break a leg, or you know, you pull a hamstring, or you do stuff like that, you know, you're injured, stuff like that. But I just, you know, I wasn't physically injured, but you know, mentally, my head, I just, you know, I was waking up with headaches, and I just felt tired all the time, and you know, I could sleep, and it was really a tough 3 or 4 weeks to begin with, and then I've slowly come back into, you know, to run in, and you know, and it took me a little while before I was allowed to, you know, to make contact. In training again, really, and it was. I think it's the longest I've ever been out. I think I've dislocated a shoulder, but I think I came back, you know, quicker from a dislocated shoulder than a couple of broken bones. I think I come back after 6 weeks after breaking my foot. You know, that was the longest time I think I've had out of football, was with that concussion injury.
Have you had any sort of after effects or anything from that head injury, like later in life?
No, not that I know of. You know, you mentioned earlier about was I good at my schooling and stuff like that? You know, I was okay. You know what I mean? I've never been the brightest. You know, I've done okay since I finished playing football and re-educating myself and doing different stuff through the PFA. But I don't think it has. But I don't think you learn. You know, I've been concussed a few times since. You know, I've played in a couple of games. You know, I remember one at Bath where I remember getting sort of, you know, knocked out, split my eye. I remember coming running off, the doctor stitching me back up. There was no test of concussion or anything like that.
No,
back on the pitch, and I just remember, nothing really, just back running around. Can't remember the score of the game. I can't remember. You come off and you think, what was I doing? What was I doing really? But now, like you say, the protocol with head injuries is so different to what it was 10 years ago. There's a protocol to follow, and like say, being involved in Bath as a coach and assistant manager over the last sort of 6 years or so. When you get these lads in on loan and stuff like that, the first moment, even if you're not sure they've been concussed, you get them off, and there's a concussion protocol to follow, really, which is there for the better, really, especially with the science and all the stuff we've got nowadays. It'd be really silly to ignore it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope, funny enough, we talked about this last week on the Roderick Gig show, that clubs have got to, and the FA and football generally, I think, have got to start getting up with other sports when it comes to concussions and concussion substitutes and independent doctors assessing people with head injuries, not club doctors, because I think I see some of the things I've seen in the last couple of weeks in the Premier League. I'm thinking, you keep doing that, something bad is going to happen, because they're patching players up who are clearly not right and sending them out. And I just think there's no excuse, knowing the little that we know about head injuries and concussions now that we didn't know 20 years ago. Like, there's no excuse to be doing that now. And
totally agree. Totally agree. And I think it's the welfare of the players and stuff like that. And like I say, football's a business, and it's very difficult. There's lots of talk, and I sit on different things, around mental health and stuff like that. But I remember, like say, moving up to Walsall, and while it was my dream, stuff like that. I mean, I'm homesick. I've left a tiny little village. I'm 16 years old, living in the middle of nowhere, crying for the first 2 or 3 weeks, thinking, do you know what? I just want to go home, But I wanted to be a professional footballer, and this is, you get through it and stuff like that. But and loads of different things. But to go to your manager and go, look, I'm not feeling a little bit great today. Is there any chance I can go home? Do you, how well that would look, 30 years ago, that would have been my apprenticeship probably finished, It's just the way, way it is, whether it's for the good or for the bad, and we can debate it. So, probably another show, really. But, and there's very much like that in football, losing your place in the team, all the different things, going to the manager and doing different stuff. And it's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult in football.
So you had been out on loan with Evervale. You signed then with Forest Green, like you mentioned, made 32 appearances for them before having a little loan spell at Bath towards the end of that stage. So you had a couple of loan spells at Bath then before you went and did your long stint.
I did, yeah. Went in 97 and then 2002, I think. Yeah.
How was your time at Forest Green?
It was tough, really, really tough. I bought a house not far from, it's where my parents had a pub and stuff, and I bought a house not far from Forest Green's ground, really. And I had an opportunity really to go Darlington or Torquay, some of the lower football league teams again, really. And Forest Green has just got promoted to the conference, and the chairman there is probably one of the best men I've met in football. Bless his soul, he's not around anymore, but did he have a passion for football and for Forest Green? And he was, a real businessman. Had a little bit of money behind him, and they sold me the football club, really. But it was the transition of coming out of that full-time football. Forest Green were part-time then, and it was the first time I'd experienced the part-time training. And it was almost, I was at an age like, well, what do I do with myself now? Now I've come out of into they were in the conference then, non-league football. I have to re-educate myself. What I'm going to do. I couldn't ever see myself going back into the pro game now. I've dropped out and all this kind of stuff. And it took me a while. And I'm not quite sure whether the manager at the time, it took me on recommendation or had seen me play or stuff like that. But I don't think I was the player that, he was thinking I was, Mm-hmm. Same again, though, it was a great football club in terms of camaraderie, some great characters. We managed to get, into the FA Trophy final at Wembley, the old stadium. So the season was a really good season and really good. We finished quite well in the conference. We had a really good season, but the transition of coming out of full-time football and the professionalism, was so different to what it was at Forest Green at the time. And I know they're in the Football League now, and it's changed a lot since. But I found it really tough. And I think also that the bubbles burst really, that you no longer you're a professional footballer. It was just that it took a little bit of time to readjust really, and found myself. And all I ever wanted to do, even when I just wanted to play football. I couldn't see the point in training all week and not playing. And when you're sort of training a couple of nights a week, and then you come to a Saturday, there was no reserve team, there was nothing like that. There's no extra football, and so I ended up going out on loan again to Bath. I knew Paul Bowden was the manager at Bath at the time, and I almost signed for Paul Bowden when I left Cardiff actually, it gave me an opportunity to go on loan to Bath again,
I guess coming out of professional football, like these days, there is a bit of support there for young, particularly for young players, but for footballers generally who kind of drop down the systems or drop out of professional football, there is a bit of support there to help them adjust. Probably not enough still, but there is a bit.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, obviously, I doubt there would have been at that sort of time of, what we're talking, like 90, 99 really. So like 98, 99, there wouldn't really have been much support for you. It would have just been a case of you're leaving Cardiff, you're going to Forest Green, but they're not professional, or a professional club, should I say. So you're kind of just thrown from one situation to another with very little support, and still relatively young at that point, aren't you? So I mean, it's going to be a big adjustment to get used to that, and then, like you mentioned, like there is, and I don't mean this in any way disrespectful, but like there is an ego thing as well of not being a professional footballer, like mentally, because obviously up until that point you've always been, I'm a professional footballer, this is what I do, and then suddenly you're in a different scenario, different changing room where you only train a couple of times a week, so that's going to have an effect on your mental state or your mentality. How long did it take you to wrap your head around those changes, and how did you sort of cope with those changes?
Yeah, I was very lucky, really. Sort of when I was at Walsall, there was an experienced chap there who was a PFA rep, and then John Hoff at Cardiff, he was the PFA rep, and they were always really good. The PFA it wasn't, you had to go and ask for help. It wasn't those, them looking out for you, so to speak. But there was a PFA number, and they always looked on things around, looking at your finances, your pension, stuff like that. But also there was a big pot for education. So I just remember, John Harv saying to me, why you got all this time on your hands and stuff like that? Why don't you do a course? Why don't you do something like that? I was full time. I was going, look, I'm not really interested. I'm going to be a footballer or whatever. But as soon as I sort of left Cardiff, I was like, I'm going to ring the PFA and see what options are out there for me in terms of, it took me a little while actually. It was probably about 3 months into that season before I did it. Because I thought I've got all this time on my hands. I was getting paid handsomely well, from Forest Green, which was, was almost like while we were part time. It was a good wage, And so I was like playing golf and just doing things and stuff like that, and just thinking, actually, what am I going to do when what am I going to do, with my football career? Do I, try and get back in the league? Couldn't see it. Only playing part-time, that's not going to happen. So then I had to try and re-educate myself really. But like you say, there was you could ring the PFA, but there was no help around. They didn't ask me how I was mentally or anything like that. It was just, you're under 25. You can have all these courses. You pay for it. We'll, pass it. We'll give you all your money back. And there's all these pots of money, which was great. And I utilized that. One thing for the PFA is their education. I've used it many, many, many times, and done many courses through the PFA, and they've really, really looked after and done what they've said to their word really. But in terms of more help, and I lost my dad quite young at 17 when I was a sort of a YTS at Walsall, and there was no agents back then really. I had a chap that did look at one of my deals at Cardiff for me, but he was a financial advisor. He wasn't he was someone I knew, and he'd been involved in football and stuff like that, but now he was a financial advisor. But there was no agents, there was no one, stuff like that. You're having to do your stuff. Like say I'm ringing up Torquay, you're ringing up Darlington, you're ringing up clubs to try and get get trials, get stuff like that. like I say, I eventually signed for Forest Green, but it took me 3 or 4 months again to get myself in the sort of right frame of mind, really, to do something, really. And I think once I signed up for a course and I got myself going on the course, then that really gave me a focus and gave me stuff like that, really. And it's funny because I've watched over the last few years in the transition, and being like, say, we've had some lads come through at Bath, really, that have fallen out of the pro game, 19, 20, 21 and stuff like that. And I've said to them, look, try to give them my advice, look, the PFA's there, let's hit stuff like that. And, well, do you want me to help get a job, or, where are you going to go? It's very hard. But, some of the lads are very, 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 very professional. No, I'm going to train every day. I'm going to get back in. I see Bath as a stepping stone and get myself back in. And I've never seen so many lads come out and go back in, into professional football, but by having some real dedication and training every day, not just Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and still living like professional footballers. And I think you've got a good opportunity of window nowadays. Once you drop out, you've got a bit of time to go back in, whereas back when I was doing it, once you dropped out, very rarely did you go back in. I'd not heard of many, so that's when I knew at Forest Green that I had to try and get some education and get a different career behind me, really.
Interesting. So from there, you went on and made 98 appearances with Clevedon Town, so another part of the world.
Yep.
How was that? Did they play in the same league did they play in the same league as Forest Green Rovers? Was it a kind of equivalent in terms of level, or was it up or down? Or
no, they're in the league below. So they were in what would be the National Southern League now. So they were in one league below. But I had another year left on. It's really interesting because you hear lads that get paid up at football clubs and all this different stuff, got contracts left. It didn't even enter my mind at the time, really. But I had another year left on my contract there. It was evident we'd been to the playoff final. I'd missed out on playing at Wembley. I was a little bit disappointed. I'd been in the squads and I'd been stuff like that. And then pre-season, I remember Frank Regan at the time, I was on pretty good money, but I remember him saying to me, you'll be a good squad player again this year for me. That's how I see you going at it. And I thought, you know what? There's no way that I can not play football. I can't travel around the country and not play football. Sitting on the bench and coming on and being a squad player, it's just not me. I'd rather drop down 2-3 divisions and play football than do that. So, and I think we went to, Frank had some funny pre-seasons lined up, and we went to Haverfordwest, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it was a hot sunny day. That M4 was an absolute joke. It took us 5. God knows, the kickoff was delayed anyway. Sat on that coach. The lads were a good bunch of lads, to be fair. We had a good time. So we played this pre-season game, and do you know what? He didn't even put me on for a minute. I sat on the bench, and he did not even put me on for a minute in a pre-season game. And I thought, do you know what? I won't be able to cope with this mentally. Sitting here and not playing. The money's great, but
get frustrated real quick when you.
Yeah, hugely. But I didn't think about actually give me some money and I'll go. But he was quite happy to probably keep me as a squad player. But anyway, they owed me another year, really. And I just said, look, Frank, I can't do this, mate. After that game, I said, look, I've got to go and find my. And so in the end, there was a few clubs come. Bath came in and a few other clubs came in. But Clevedon had just been promoted that year. I had a good group. I had 3 or 4 lads that I knew. I said to the manager, I said, look, I don't want any guarantees, but he said, look, definitely, you're going to be my star signing for the summer and all that kind of stuff. Sold me quite well. And like you say, I was there 2 seasons. I didn't miss a game. I played every minute of every game for Clevedon. And that was what I was all about. I just wanted to play football on a Saturday. And first season was great. We had a good bunch of lads. We finished really well and stuff like that. Second season, for whatever reason, we had a bit of a change and we just couldn't buy a win. And we ended up getting relegated. So all my career so far, I'd had promotions or getting into playoffs or cup finals and, getting to Europe with with Ebervale on the last game of the season, stuff like that. So I've had some really good moments in football, really. But getting a relegation, that was my first taste of relegation. wasn't nice, and I didn't enjoy that, and I ended up leaving there after a couple of seasons. But and I live about 5 miles from Clevedon now, so it's
when
the other week to watch them.
When you told him you wanted to go after he hadn't given you a minute in the pre-season game, what was his reaction? Did he sort of explain why he hadn't given you any time in a pre-season game? Because it seems like quite a bitter thing to do just for the sake of being bitter. But, I don't know the situation, but most managers will give, even if they give you 30 seconds at the end, they'll give everyone a game in those pre-season games, isn't it?
Exactly.
Especially when you've travelled
Yeah.
and been stuck in traffic.
I think one of my strengths, really, like saying coming through, really, I was really good at reading people's behaviours. Really good. I could, I knew where I was sat with in the pecking order with Frank and stuff like that, really. And I think I've only to this day, I think I've only ever banged on the manager's door once, and asked a question. I knew what was going on. I was thinking, so I never even spoke to him. I didn't ask him. Didn't ask him why. Wasn't really interested why. I just thought, as a human being, I was always a nice guy. Anybody you probably speak to in football would say, oh, Jim, one of the nicest guys in football, stuff like that. Because I never caused managers any problems. I was always first in training, last out. My attitude was always exemplary. I think I got sent off once in my career. I never moaned. I was always happy. And I was always organising things for the football club. I was always a captain of every club I pretty much played for. Doing things really. So, I wasn't really interested in what managers' excuses, because in football, same again, they probably don't tell you what you want to hear. There's so much, so many excuses and so much, people telling you what you want to hear, and really they're not that, that's not the real truth. And so I was never really interested in the politics of football and why you're not playing and all that kind of stuff, really. But I did, however, when I was at Cardiff, I did knock the manager's door, because on the Saturday, I'm not saying I was the best player, but we drew 1-1 on against Hartlepool on the Saturday, and I was man of the match. You know what I mean? Whether I was man of the match that day, but I thought I did all right and played all okay. And then we were playing Swansea live on Sky. Live on Sky on the following Sunday, and I wasn't even in the squad, wasn't even on the bench. I was thinking, this is my opportunity. Last week I was man of the match. This week I'm not even in the squad. You know what I mean? Seriously, how does that work? I know it was a derby. It was, it was live on Sky, and but I was, I could handle football.
You wonder what's happened in a week.
Yeah, and that was the only time I've ever knocked on the manager's door to say, why wasn't I playing? And
who's the manager then?
What was it? It was Kenny Hibbett. Yeah, and he was good, very good, still good mates to this day. Very good mate. I was going to
say, he's someone who you're friends with and you're good with. What was his answer?
I just said that it was a big, we were going for experience in there. It's live on Sky. He did brilliant last week, but and like I say, there was one of the lads was back fit, and back at the time we had David Penny was the captain. You know what I mean? And it was just So I did understand, really, but it was the only time I felt I had to knock the door, because I really wanted. And I thought I'd get an honest answer from Ken, which I'm sure it was at the time, but I haven't done it since, and I've been left out on a few occasions.
We were now at Clevedon Town there. So you went to Clevedon, you played for a season and a bit, 48 appearances and a goal. Didn't get too many of those throughout your playing career, at least according to the stats, until the 500 odd games, nearly 500 games at Bath. But just before we get to the return to Bath for the third time, and a long stint as well, you did go to the mighty Merthyr Tydfil for a couple of years, just over a year. How did you find Merthyr? Because that's a place.
Yeah, it is a place. Yeah. Well, John Lewis had taken over the manager's job there, and he was the manager at Eberville that took me there on loan.
Okay.
And he had a couple of good players there, and not that I've ever signed anywhere for money, really, but it was quite a distance from Bristol to go. You were
traveling all the way up there. Were you from Bristol each day? Or
that's right. Yeah, he'd offer me. Clevedon was very similar as well, and Merthyr. I was only working part time. I still wanted to be, have enough time for football and try and play at the best level I could, really. So I was still only working part time, but obviously getting paid a good wage for playing part time football as well, really. So that's why I sort of did it, really. So I knew that I could fit it in around my work and stuff, really. But I went up there. Same again. It was just when I went up and met John, it had that feel, really. The support, big support, for non-league football. It was an old-fashioned ground, which I liked. And he just sort of said, look, we're trying to do this, we're trying to get into the conference, and it sort of sold it to me, really. Apart from, I think up until Christmas, it was really, really good. Really enjoyed it. The traveling was tough, but there was a few of us traveling across, really. And John looked after me, really. He'd say, "Oh, I'll have the night off, whatever." But I love football. We're only in 2 nights a week. Why would I want the night off? It was a club with quite a lot of history as well. When you speak to people, you start speaking to the fans, and then you look on the wall, and they played Atlanta in Europe, and they've done all these different things. It was a really good football club. But I think just after Christmas, there was a few money issues. There was a few things that went wrong. John lost his job, and they brought Leroy Rossina in. And he was a Bristol guy. Leroy, lovely guy, and we were signing players from all over. Lads coming up from Torquay, lad Nicky Banger coming up from Southampton. We signed a lad Stuart Taylor coming down from Newcastle, and he was having a real good push at it. But we just still couldn't win a game. We had all these, no real team spirit, but all these really good players that were coming in, and then all of a sudden, Leroy sort of had a bit of a lost his job or whatever. I'm not sure whatever, but I just remember I was just about to sign another contract there with them, and he basically rang me and said, "Look, Jim, this football club's, don't sign. Honestly, don't sign." And then about another week or so later, all the money stopped, and we didn't get paid, and there was a few things that that went on, and which brought me back across the bridge really. But it was a shame because it was a lovely, great football club, great people, but I think it wasn't being run right off the pitch in terms of finances and what was going on. And I didn't really, same again, I'd never got into the politics of football, never interested in the politics of football, and I did manage to score for Merthyr, which was nice.
Yes, indeed. So we then get to your big stint. So you did about 10 years at this point, but obviously that went on to become an even longer stint in total with the club. But you did about 10 years from 2002 to 2012, making nearly 500 appearances. So I'm assuming you liked it there because you were you were there for that long, and then obviously you've gone on and you've been assistant manager. And you've been involved with the football club for about 20 years, I think you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, hugely. I like I say, I'd been there twice on loan already. I knew exactly what the football club was all about. Same again, if you've ever been to Bath, it's the same. It's got that big old-fashioned, football ground with the big floodlights and stuff like that. And I think one of the things in football is that I think one of the best things for me, and people ask me all the time, is what's the best thing in football, and it's the people you meet. I just remember all the people you met. You knew, even when I was on loan, I knew the chairman, I knew the directors, I knew the tea lady, I knew you everybody in the football club there, and I thought that was a really good thing at Bath at the time, and I sort of had made that transition now where my football was becoming a little bit I needed to get a full-time job, so I ended up basically deciding to go full-time. So I needed somewhere to play a little bit close to home, so I didn't have the time to travel or other stuff like that. So Bath was, was sort of half an hour from my house, and I ended up moving to 15, 20 minutes from down the road after a couple of years of being at Bath. It become my club really. And over the years, like you say, the first couple of years were a bit of a struggle. Because they didn't have a lot of money really, and we went through lots of players, lots of squads. But I soon became captain, and really enjoyed that sort of bit of the football club. Trying to build a team spirit, because we weren't necessarily had the best players in the league, but we had the best spirit, the best camaraderie, and that got us over the line on quite a few occasions really. And I really enjoyed that bit really. And then it wasn't until John Relish, another chap that from over the bridge, he came across with AD Britain. They'd been manager of Merthyr, I think, the season before, and when they came in, the football club managed to find a little bit more money really, and we signed a little bit more experience. And then once you get your first promotion as a captain, in the old Southern League, to get back up into the sort of conference Southern League was really, really good, really good. And then went on to captain them again. We had 3 years, I think 3 years in that conference South, so to speak. And like I said, I didn't miss a game. I think he rested me for one. I think I was on my 96th, 97th appearance on the trot where I played, and we played Weymouth on the Tuesday night, and the manager gave me a rest, and I was fuming, but understood the reasons. And then went on, got back in the team straight away. I just had that one night's rest, and we managed to get into the playoffs, and then winning the playoff final against Woking. Was as a captain of Bath, you've been there for so long. I think I played about 400 games by then, 350, 400 games by then, and to get that promotion back into the conference where a lot of the teams were full time. There was like Wrexham, Luton, Cambridge. There were some massive teams in there. To get promoted for the football club and go into that league, and it was pretty special. And I think, like I say, when Rel and that's where I met Gethin really. Where Rel and AD come in, they bought a few lads. Geth had been over at Merthyr playing for them, and they signed another lad, Paul Evans from Bridgend, who was a goalkeeper with Sheffield Wednesday and Leeds and stuff. And those boys, they were travelling from over the other side of Cardiff or whatever to get to training. Same again, they never missed a training session. They were always on a night out. They were brilliant set of lads, really. And it's a wonderful football club with great fans, great people, and it was tough to step away.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a hell of a journey you've been on, and I'm kind of interested. Like, obviously, we can't go through every single season of everything. You're involved with the football club for a very long time with Bath, but I am interested in some of the kind of high points, some of the low points, and how you enjoyed them, how you dealt with them. What sort of moments really spring to mind when you kind of think of it in those respects?
Yeah, I think my first low point really was the manager who brought me across there, a chap called Alan Pridham, and he took the job on. He was a local chap, local businessman, lovely guy, and he had no money at all. I mean, zero money. He was signing players like me that come across from Merthyr, like literally for next to nothing. And and when he got the sack, I thought, I'm not quite, at Bath, this is a real, I'd never, I know Kenny had lost his job over at Cardiff, and it was a good man of mine, but this was a bit of a, he brought me to the football club, and I felt like, it was a real bit of a sad time. Was his first sacking, but when John and Royal come in and built a squad, getting promoted into that, into the first promotion was really big. Bath City had been through, they were always a conference team, they've been through a few tough years, financially and other things going on off the field with the football club. And I think when we got that first promotion, it was almost we were playing a local derby every week, because it was like Team Bath, who were the university team that were coming up and coming team coming through. They used to play their home games on our ground, so to beat them every week was was great. But then you had Yate, you had Mangotsfield, you had Clevedon, Merthyr were in that league as well, and that was always, don't know why it was over the bridge and some far away, but always seemed to be a local derby with Bath. I don't know why. It was a real tough game. We had Gloucester. There's so many local games that every week you seem to be playing in a local derby, and to win it there was pretty special. And being sort of the club captain, I always tried to negotiate with the football club, a nice trip away at the end of the season after a promotion. So I managed to get a couple of good trips. So they speak to my show. Both promotions obviously are two really special ones, especially the second one, to get them back into the conference where the football club had been for many years of their history. That was on that playoff game, and there was over 5,000 at Twerton Park. There was a delayed kickoff because there were so many people still trying to get in. We sort of delayed the kickoff by 45 minutes to get all the fans in and stuff like that. And we weren't really expected to win. Woking were sort of a full-time team ready to get promoted into the next level, and we managed to beat them on a Sunday afternoon. And that was that was pretty special. And we've had a couple of good FA Cup runs. I remember we went to Grimsby and beat Grimsby in the FA Cup, and boy, that was a trip home from Grimsby on that bus, believe me. Okay. I've been, I tried to be a responsible sort of a character, being the captain and stuff like that, and I've been drunk a few times on the bus. But coming back from Grimsby, I was pretty well oiled, really. I just think the group, the players and the fans and stuff like that, all celebrating together, all doing their different stuff like that. I think that's the real highs, real highs of the football club, really. And then there was a real low. I remember we played. I'd finished playing, really. I was a squad player then, really. I was about 38, 39, I think, at the time, and we got to the semi-final of the FA Trophy. So we had sort of one foot on Wembley Way. We drew 2-2 in the first leg, and we went up to North Ferriby, and we scored early, and we were winning 1-0. But the game went to penalties, and we managed losing the game on penalties. And we really fancied ourselves to get to Wembley that day. And as a non-league club, to get to Wembley, it gives everybody, all the volunteers, all the people that have been supporting the club for years and years and years, a great day out. And for the players, for a non-league player to go and represent their team at Wembley would have been a real special occasion. But I remember getting beaten that and seeing a change room with 20 odd grown men crying is not a nice place to be. It took us ages to get that one. We travelled straight back after the game, because we lost. And I remember, I don't think anyone spoke on the bus till we got to Birmingham. I think, it was like a good couple of hours at least before anybody spoke and had a drink or whatever and stuff like that. And then our league season after that, I don't think we won a game for 4 or 5 games after that. We were just, hit everybody so hard. You were so close to getting into Wembley that, that was a real, it's not too many regrets in football, but that was one that I think we could probably have maybe done a little bit more in preparation to, when we're going into extra time and penalties, we probably could have, done a little bit more preparation to win the game than what we did as coaches and staff. And I was part of that coaching staff that, that was involved in that really. And then we've had, in the last few years it's a little bit different when you stop, you hang up your boots and you cross that line and you become a coach. The last year was a bit of a write-off because of COVID, but the 2 seasons before that, we managed to get in the playoffs, and just fell short in the playoffs. And those playoff games are really, really special at Twerton Park, when you host those playoff games. And so they were, 2 recent highs, I'd so to speak, really. And then, I think, I wouldn't say it's a low stepping away, but when you've been at a club for so long and you've got so many friends and it's part of your makeup, stepping away was,
It's got to be difficult to do that after such a long time involved with the club on different levels to have to step away from whatever the reasons may be to have to step away. It's got to be difficult. Yeah, it is. But I think I mentioned at the start of the podcast really is that in football you have to be very, very selfish. To family members, stuff like I've missed my brother's weddings. I've done different loads of different things. So many family events. To put football first. And I think probably from a young age, really, because football's always been part of me. I've always thought that's how it's got to be. Football's my. I'm letting people down at the football club. I'm part of a team. This is. I've got so such love and such passion for football that you always put it first. And like you say, one of the reasons one is work. I've got a really good job and I'm really, really busy coming out of COVID with work. But the other thing is I've got my boys 4. The season wasn't we'd been knocked out of the FA Cup against Banbury and emotions are quite low in football and stuff like that. And I'm questioning why am I still traveling around the country at 45 years of age? I've got all this what is it is with Bath? Bath's been there 20 years. Can't speak highly enough football club, but what is it about Bath? It's not Barcelona, it's not it's not Chelsea, it's not Arsenal, it's not real, it's not a Premier League football club, it's not professional by any means and stuff like that. But it's still my number one priority, and I'm coaching as well. I'm not even playing. I'm not the captain. I'm not, And my little boy was not very well. He'd had an asthma attack on early hours of Saturday morning, and he was in hospital. And it was 11 o'clock on that Saturday morning. I'm saying to the wife, I said, right, I'm off to football now. And she said, pardon? Are you serious? I said, yeah. I said, yeah, I can't. I've got to go to football. I can't let people down. She goes, your son's in hospital having an asthma attack. You know what I mean? Is there anything more important than your son? And it just hit home for me then, really. I just thought, what, Jim? I've put football first for so many years that at some point, something's got to break. I'm a part-time coach, and while it's such a heartbreaking to step away, I had to make that real tough decision, really, because, like I say, my children, 4 years of age, just starting school and all these different things and stuff like that. And now, when you're a player, it's a little bit different. While I was a captain, I did a lot more than what probably I did, but you can turn up at a certain time. When you're coaching and you're assistant manager and doing that kind of stuff, you're always looking for new players. You're always looking at opposition. You're always organising the events for the week. Then you're organising training, and then you don't just get in at 7 and go. You're in at 5 and you've gone and you put so many hours because you want to do it to the best of your ability, and that's what was the point. I always wanted to commit to it. I just thought that I'm at this stage in my life where I can't give that kind of commitment to the football club, and that's why I've managed to free up myself a little bit of time. On a Saturday afternoon. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's you kind of have to make that decision. I think ultimately it's one of those things where I always think with anything is there comes a time where you've got to make a decision in terms of like family and whatever it may be, football or whatever you're doing, and you have to kind of pick which one. And often, how many people from football, from different careers and things which require a lot of hours, eventually they lose their family or whatever it may be. And, they end up alone or they end up sort of struggling because they've kind of dedicated so much to the game or to whatever it may be. So,
exactly that side. And I think, like I say, and I know it's tough. We'll go back right to the beginning of the podcast where I mentioned, like you say, when you get into the professional game, and while I was with my mates, and I'm like literally really enjoying, playing on a Sunday morning with all my mates stuff. But then you go to a centre of excellence, which is professional. All of a sudden, you stop enjoying it, and there's a little bit like that coming out of the pro game. When you go into the non-league game, you get a bit of best of both worlds, because you're not actually professional, but you're trying to be a professional. But you can still go and have a beer within reason. You can walk down the street, and you don't get, people don't really recognise a non-league football. So you get in non-league football, you get the best of both. But on a Saturday, on a match day, you go to the FA Cups, and teams in our league beat league teams. You still get that football buzz. You still get all that kind of stuff that football gives you at any level. But it's almost going back to enjoyment with you. It's almost you're playing with your mates. It's that camaraderie. It's all that different things, that team spirit, and all the different stuff that goes with it. You lose a little bit, and that's why I've always said in non-league football, it's you get the best of both, and also if you've got a day job where a lot of the lads have, because of, I know it's changing every year, gets less and less, more lads are using our league as a full-time sort of thing to get back in the league, but lots of lads have got jobs. You get the best of both worlds. You get two salaries, and when you're at work, you can switch off from football, and that's, and I think that was a good release for me. Once I got a job and I started having a different stuff like that, I could switch off from your football pressures, and you've got something else to think about. And then, actually football, you stop, you think about job, and because everyone thinks about football, anyone that loves football, you think about football, half the day. And I still do now, because I love the game. But I think that with non-league football, you almost go back to that beginning of why I started playing football. It's it's not, it doesn't have that seriousness, so to speak.
Yeah, I know. I fully understand. So just a kind of couple of quick questions to finish off.
Yep.
So first and foremost, who is the best footballer you've ever played with or trained with or seen right up and close and personal?
Yeah, it's always a difficult one. Someone asked me to pick my best Bath City 11 the other week, and I just thought, I played with so many good players. I wouldn't want to be disrespectful to any of the lads that I've played with and single out one or whatever and stuff like that, really, because they're all good teammates and stuff like that, really. But there's certain players that you play against and you stuff like that across your career. And I remember playing against Gordon Strachan in a reserve game, and my gosh, Gordon Strachan was ridiculous. Fit, never gave the ball away. He was class, and in the younger. Playing in the reses, and you played against, Frank Lampard and Ray Fan, really good stuff. But I remember a time we played Wigan away, and Martinez was playing for Wigan at the time. Obviously, he's gone on and, obviously manager of Belgium now and stuff like that. But I remember I was doing a man-to-man job on him, and I think I got booked in the first 2 minutes, by just trying, not being able to get anywhere near him and clattering into him and stuff. And, Martinez was a real exceptional player to play against. But then playing with, there's some really good, Rob Earnshaw obviously springs to mind, when he was coming through as a young kid, his finishing, he was a core. His finishing was a real talent. But I think the lad really, particularly in my Cardiff days, really that I played with was Jeff Eckhart. Jeff, absolute, core. What a guy, play up front, play at the back, played alongside him in quite a few of my games, and just talk you through. He was a real leader. Everything he did was solid. He was a good, proper guy. No airs and graces about that guy, you know what I mean? And in my time at Cardiff, Jeff, if you ask me someone who was the lad that sort of, stood out, would have been Jeff Eckhart for sure, really. But it's a tough question.
Indeed. Who is the angriest player you've ever played with?
Angriest player. There's a lad. I wouldn't say he's angry, but he's the most craziest. Literally, there's a lad called A.D. Harris. Yeah, he was at Cardiff City as a kid, and he fitted around non-league for a long time, but he played a lot of games for Bath. And I still speak to him to this day. It's funny, whenever you have a promotion with the lads, you always, meet up and speak to these lads. And A.D. Harris, well, he was, when he crossed that white line, he was a totally different, boy. Great lad.
Excellent. And I think also, I completely forgotten what the question was now. Oh well, we'll have to leave that one because I can't remember what it was. So what I like to do with this series is kind of finish off with one question. Everyone interprets it differently, I guess, and that is, Jim Rollo, what is the meaning of life?
Meaning of life, for me, is health. Yeah, as long as you got your health, and it's a huge part of me, and always has been, even in my work and even when you football out with. And without your health, you can't really do a lot. So health's very, 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 very important to me. And the next one would be my family. Family and health. That's the two things I'd say would sum me up.
Ultimately, the only things which matter is what I say to my wife most of the time. Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure to have a chat to you and just to kind of listen to you talk about your career. It's been really fun. Really, really enjoyed it. And thank you very much for your time.
No problem, Si. Thanks for your time, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Take care.
Cheers, buddy. Bye-bye.